Okay, checkity check, check, check. Checkity check, check. Okay, we'll see. Hopefully that's not too loud. I'm sure people will let me know. Okay, everybody. Hey, how's it going? My name's Michael Markowsky, and welcome to my studio. And today we are going to learn how to draw people wearing clothes. So in the episode before this, we learned a little bit about fabric and how to draw different kinds of textures and how to draw some folds and drapery. And that is kind of really instrumental for being able to do what we want to do going forward, which is to be able to draw t-shirts on people, or sweaters, jackets, dresses, kilts, socks, you know, and so on and so forth. My wife always gives me a hard time because when I give examples, I like to give many examples. So today what I want to do is start out with some simple kind of a little bit of warm-ups, and then we're going to build to a little bit more difficult drawings with people wearing different kinds of outfits. And I've just been in teacher mode for the past or administrator side of the teacher brain for the past like 4 hours here, because it's September 1st already. Oh my goodness. And my classes at the university start in a few weeks, or a week I guess, and tons of emails and meetings and all this kind of stuff. So I'm super excited to be able to sit down and just draw like with you guys. So let's see. I haven't had a chance to put these together. Oh, where's my video? Okay, let's see. Oops, that's not showing up. So we'll create a new one. I'm just creating little templates here so I can show you my computer screen. And so let's go online here, and this is a site I like to use where you can get free images. I'm not paid by them, or I should get sponsored, but let's look at, type in fashion and see what kinds of images we could look at. So some of these could be really fun for, oh my goodness, lots of stuff here. I wonder though if these might be a little complicated for our first warm-up drawing. But these are fabulous. Okay, so we're going to do a lot of drawing today, and we're going to really just focus on the clothes. So we're not going to worry about getting people's faces right, or their hair, or even really the proportions of people. It's really just going to be about fabric today and clothes. So what could be something nice and simple here? I kind of like this one. It's kind of fairly straightforward. Here's my wife with my tea. Oh, thank you. Love you, sweetheart. Look at the service around here. It's just fantastic. What's something? Let's go for cartoon fashion, and let's just look up some images. Fashion illustration, is, you know, a legitimate form of art, and there's many. Pretty much, if you want to be a fashion designer, you got to know how to draw and be able to draw clothes, right? So maybe a good place for us to some stuff to practice. I'm just looking at these. Like, let's go to fashion illustration, because this could be where, ooh, look at that, that's cool. Okay, so what I like to do, just so you can see my whole process for finding images, is I'm going to make it Google Images select something large so that, oh, look at these, so that if I drag these to the desktop like this, and I open it up, it's going to be nice and big. Okay. These are fun. I thought they were going to be a little bit higher quality of drawings. We're going to study something we want to study from somebody, some of the best, right? Oh, what's this? This looks like somebody's book on fashion illustration. So, looks like here's somebody who's, these are great. Okay, so here's some good publicity for the author Jonah Baker. And let's kind of zoom into a few of these. So when it comes to fashion illustration, you want to do a few things, like show the kind of the movement of the fabric, which is why this one is, I like that. Some of these show less of the folds. Oh, these are nice. Look at this. Wow, so these are, okay, some great ones here. And so let's, kind of like this one that I kind of pointed out right at the beginning. It's going to be a little bit pixelated to start, but I think this would be good for a warm-up. We got two. I'll put them side by side so that if people are going fast, they can draw whichever one appeals to them most. Okay, let's pull this down here, pull this down there, and here we go. Move my sketchbook out of the way, and look at this. I've got, for this class, I think I got, this is the third sketchbook I have for this class, and almost out of pages, which I love. I love filling up a sketchbook. It just is so satisfying having one completely finished, and it reminds me, maybe while I figure out my pencils, I think Peter had asked something in between the week about, or in between the classes, of sketchbooks. What do I do with my old sketchbook or sketchbooks for this class? You know, they take up some room. Should I get rid of them? Should I tear out some pages? Should I glue them into a sketchbook of all my best drawings, etc., right? What my personal recommendation is to keep everything. Now, my wife would probably say that she would prefer if I didn't keep everything. But, you know, when it comes to a sketchbook, you know, it's not that much space. I mean, I'm sure there's probably other things that you have around your house that take up more space. So I would encourage you to keep the whole sketchbook until you're at the point where you're somebody like me who's got boxes and boxes full of them, and maybe I could go through them. What I would say is, if you are determined to get rid of and cull and make some extra space, is to not only just photograph them, but if you have a scanner, is to scan your pictures so that at the very least you have really high quality versions of all of the drawings that you've made. Even the ones you don't think are that good right now, because I can't tell you the number of times where to be honest, I actually have nightmares sometimes about drawings that I remember tearing up and throwing out. Just because later on, I like, it occurs to me that a really great idea or something came through in one of those sketches. Anyway, I could talk about this while I'm drawing, right? So let's just get right to it. So I'm going to draw the girl in the, well, let's say I could probably get, if I turn my sketchbook, I could probably get both of these figures in here. So let's do that as a warm-up. Well, I don't know, the one on the right is one that, I think there's better ones that we saw, so I think I might use a different one, but I'm going to fit them both on this page here. So just to kind of help me. I'll just kind of scoot this. I'm just going to draw a line down the middle. And in fact, mine's not quite down the middle, and it's certainly not straight, so don't worry about making your lines all perfect and straight. So if we want to draw this image, I'm not going to go into coloring her hair and everything, but I'm going to just put a line right down the middle, because this would be like your action line. We talked about this months and months ago, but just to kind of help us get things in place. So let's say we got a head. The way she's walking is she's kind of got one shoulder up here like this, and then you see kind of how her hips kind of turn and they go onto the side kind of like this. And then it looks like, now I don't really know too much about walking when it comes to fashion, the fashion walk, but I think this is this foot that's up front, right? Maybe, and then this one in behind. Okay, and then we've got these hands, which are going to be covered by her dress. So this is the kind of the structure of the figure underneath that image. So we're really just going to focus on the dress today. Now, I don't think there's straps on this dress, so okay. I guess these are some kind of frills up here. And then what's nice about this outfit is you could see these spirals. And actually, before I even get to that, let's just quickly outline where the shape. So here is kind of the top of the hips, right? And kind of this would be her belly button would be right about there, right? And then the widest part here. So I'm trying to figure out where this dress is going to kind of billow out to. All right. Maybe I need to bring this up a little bit and show a little bit more of her ankle up there. It's up to you, right? No one's going to know where you got this original sketch from. So I can then I'm going to follow just like we did like with the hair. Right, when we were drawing hair, see if I could follow a few of these lines around. Right? And then maybe a few of them kind of come up. Alright. So you can see I'm just going to make it a little bit longer. Okay. So these ones up here, they're going to kind of wrap around her top, right? And then these are kind of now coming, if you imagine, from behind and wrapping their way out this way. All right? Okay, so let's just clarify this a little bit with another color, so in this case my blue. Let's say, I don't really want to focus on her face, but I'll just kind of she's got this big smile and some hair. All right, and I guess we've spent a lot of time talking about if we were going to draw her body, her arms are, in the way that I've drawn it, are kind of hidden. Okay. Now, again, I'm just using this as inspiration. I'm not it's too pixelated for me to really see what's going on. But can be kind of fun because I can use that as an opportunity to, really play here. So I think there was some kind of frills up top here. Okay. And we have these kind of curving around. One of the reasons why I show you just sort of how I search for images is I want you to also see how kind of quickly you can find something to draw. Because, and I've said this before, and people are like, yeah, he's always repeating himself, but people, including myself on occasion, will give themselves the excuse that they can't draw right now because they don't have anything to draw. And that is probably the #1 excuse artists give themselves for not getting art done is, well, you know, I didn't have any inspiration. Okay, so right here I'm just kind of adding some of these kind of folds, and you see I'm kind of just like one fold in front of the other. Coming right around this way. Doesn't quite exactly look like her dress. It's not even in pink either, right? But maybe I'll just quickly give her body some shape. Oops, that's a funny looking arm, right? Oh well. You know, one of the features of fashion illustration is kind of how maybe abstract the faces are at times, right? It's because it's not a figure study. People aren't trying to draw people, they're trying to draw the clothes, right? So you can allow yourself to kind of get away with, you know, totally blank faces or whatever, right? So, oh, and then she's got these shoes down here. Open-toed shoes, right? So it's just trying to capture that fluidity of these stripes kind of moving across. Now, I could, just in terms of her drawing, the body was a little bit more tapered in here. This kind of has made her midsection look a little bit wider. But, you know, as for our warm-up drawing, I'm warming up just like you guys. Like I said, I'm coming in a little bit cold because I've just been in meetings this morning. Okay. So, what could be another one for our warm-up? I like this one. This does remind me of the drawings we were doing last class. You know, these banners, right? So that could be a fun one to draw. So let's just think about that for a second. All right, I like these. Again, what's kind of nice about this one is it's kind of that sheer fabric where you see like a hint of the person's legs in behind. So that would be kind of a fun thing. Ooh, this is kind of cool. Maybe we'll do that one. Ooh, I think I'm gonna put these side by side on the screen here and give people the option. Because I like both of them. I think I'm gonna try drawing the one on the right. So again, I'm just gonna draw a line straight down here, all right? And let's put a head in here. And this head too can kind of also act as like our 8 head or 7.5, 6 head, 4.5 head tall figure. So if I wanted, I could think like, okay, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all right, head tall figure if I wanted, right? And then, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Oh, so this is 7.5. Well, let's say this 8 head tall figure. So this would be right in the middle of the torso. Again, looks like this shoulder is kind of, I'm exaggerating a little bit. So I'm drawing the woman on the right, in this closest to the center here, the big flowing dress. That's what I'm going to draw. So her shoulder's kind of arched on one side. All right, so we would expect that might make her hips go the other way, contrapposto. All right, and again, we can't fully see these legs. Looks like one knee is bent or something somewhere here. I'm not sure exactly what's happening under there. Okay, so we got that. Our neck. So I see this big piece of fabric that's flowing down here, and this one flowing down here. Right, and it kind of drapes in behind. And then if we think this is around where the belly button's going to be, right? Then it looks like it kind of cinches up around here. So in the comments before this episode began, I just kind of posed, you know, what would we have 3 classes remaining in the course, and my original plan was to continue doing figurative work here and showing you guys how to draw fast drawings of people, like faster than this, and showing you how to draw kind of drawings of some strangers. So I would go out and shoot a little bit of footage on the street. And then the last one would be how to draw a friend and get a likeness of them. So that's the plan. I saw Peter in the comments suggesting about drawing some landscape and buildings and such. Like a cartoon version of the Statue of Liberty. My original plan was to think about, okay, I'm just going to draw these eyes here. I'm just going to put a couple quick little dots. All right. We got her hair. And I was originally planning on doing a whole separate course on landscape, but that probably won't happen until maybe even next summer. So I'm open to the possibility if a lot of people want to do landscapes instead of more figurative stuff. So I'll kind of leave that in the comments there. If you want to move on and try getting a little taste of how to draw a landscape, I could transition to that. If, on the other hand, you'd like to continue as planned, we can do that, right? So right here, what I'm just doing is kind of trying to get these big flowing kind of shapes. You know, looking at the original sketch here and just trying to capture that sense of flow in these images. Okay. And so if we think this would be about where her knee is, we'd have one leg here. That's a funny line. Look at that quite a thin little ankle here. Well, I'm still warming up, folks. Look at that. Some funny, weird drawings coming out of my hands and head. Well, these it will help if I maybe put a little bit of shading on them. Oh, is that a transparent place? Okay. So, you know, one of the things that's happening in this drawing is, like, it's partly because I'm chatting away as I'm trying, and then I'm looking down and I'm like, oh my goodness, what is going on? This is probably a place that many of you find yourself in. You're making a drawing and you're just like, oh goodness gracious, what on earth am I doing? And that, I can imagine that's a very frustrating thing. The more that I draw, the more that I've just come to be pretty nonchalant about that kind of thing. You know, it's like a baseball player stepping up to the plate and striking out. It's like, well, it's a bummer, but well, let's just get a shot again next time. So we'll just keep moving forward. So personally, if that drawing isn't turning out, then I just start playing with it and think about, like, what else could I do here to kind of make it work? Does it need to look exactly like the original? Maybe I should add a big hat or something on here. And maybe my drawing isn't quite as flowy. So I'm going to add a few more. Let's keep on going. Let's make it so I just like keep on building on it, and just like I sometimes think of it as like graffitiing on my own drawing. Right, so let's say I want to just to distinguish her a little bit from there's her body, I think, in there. Okay. Turning this kind of more into like a cape, I guess. This is the under part of her hat. It's going to be kind of dark under here too, right? So I always think about if I'm going to do a drawing of something, I just want to take inspiration from it and then run, right? So definitely did not turn out as I expected it to, but all in all, I'm not too happy with the way that it turned out. Okay, so I think let's I'm going to move on to doing some of the photos that we were looking at here a moment ago. So just as again, this looks like it could be a pretty good book. Okay, so I'm gonna go back up top here. So I'm gonna look at some clothes to draw. Which were some of the ones? I think I liked this one here. Download the original size so I have it. Oh. So here's the photographer Judeus Sampson. Thanks, Judeus, for taking this cool photograph, and we're going to use it as inspiration for our drawing today. Okay, so this image actually is kind of similar to what we were just drawing. but we're just going to take it to another level here. So where would we begin? So even before I start drawing, one of the things I think I mentioned before when I'm thinking about drawing somebody is to, okay, I guess I'm mirrored this way where I gotta, oh, where am I? I like to kind of just put myself, this is weird, everything's kind of backwards in the camera here, in this position just so I can kind of feel the weight, right? So if you're sitting, it might be worth just standing up and shaking out a little bit, right? So I'm not wearing, you probably don't want me wearing form-fitting clothes, but you know, I can, as I do this, I realize like this leg is not doing very, is not carrying much weight, right? Most of the weight is on this leg, right? In terms of this photograph, right? So she's got her, she's really kind of putting a lot of weight on that one leg, right? And we got this arm, it's kind of jutting out backwards a bit. That's, so she must be kind of turned a little bit, right? To make that, this elbow go back. And I guess maybe that arm's higher. So all of that is helpful just because it just puts me in the mind frame of this pose. So when I'm drawing it, I've already thought a little bit about what I need to do and where the forms are going to be. Okay. So again, we're not going to worry too much about proportion and all that kind of stuff. Where I'm going to start is where I usually, so if I was thinking next week we would do some gesture drawing, but which would be how to draw this whole thing in, let's say, like 3 minutes or less. So we're not going to do that. So we'll give a little bit of a preview to. One of the things I like to start with is kind of the shoulders, because this really kind of helps me know where the kind of the top, I think I talked about the drawing a pillow in the past, right? So if I think about this as a pillow, the internal part of her body, right? We can even see this ribbon around her waist. It's right, probably right around her belly button, right in here, right? And then we have this here, right? So this leg is kind of pointing down. Oh, what am I doing? You can't see what I'm doing. Ah, sorry about that. Okay. So I started by drawing her shoulder, and then I was thinking about the inside of, underneath that, this outfit, what do you call this, a one piece, right, is this pillow shape, right? And so this is the bottom of the pillow. This right here is basically kind of the, is this part right here, right? And then this is kind of where her hand is. If that makes sense. And this hand's kind of draping down, right? So this leg is planted into the ground. I'm just gonna put, you know, a foot right here. That would be around where her knee would be. All right, so this is one leg. All right, and then we have this other leg here. Okay. Up here is going to be where her chest is. Right, and then her head is a little bit off center. Right. And the proportions aren't perfect here, but these are her shoulders. Probably I've made her this kind of shape inside a little bit big, so I'm just narrowing it down a little bit. Again, you can see that I'm trying to go for arcing lines as much as possible rather than straight lines. So everything is kind of bowing in some direction or the other. Okay. She's got this big, beautiful head of hair kind of coming out all over here. Just gonna outline that. Probably won't draw any of that, but just is kind of good to know. So this line here basically corresponds with like her collarbone, right? You see those kind of collarbones in here, and then these are her shoulders, these muscles that go right up into her neck. Okay. So I think that's enough drawing of her body, to be honest. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start detailing some of her clothes. Okay. So I'm going to just still sketch this out, right? So here's this kind of V-neck shape here we've got, right? And then it looks like this fabric, and we can follow these kind of folds, right? These things are kind of cinching towards this waist and this bow. All right, this kind of fabric knotting there. Okay, same sort of thing here. So her arm is going to kind of come in front here. You can see her elbow is kind of right around in here. I'm going to slightly just move that around. You can see the bottom part of her hand should be somewhere around here. These legs are a little bit short, but in terms of proportion. But so again, now I'm looking for these kind of folds in the fabric. This is why I kind of also chose this dress, because, or onesie, or whatever you want to call it, because it's got these kind of nice kind of pulling lines kind of going across. So you see, I mean, there's probably some wind or something blowing that's helping to cause these, but this is also just the tension of her, the kind of twist in her body. So we got all this fabric, and then it kind of billows here. Okay. So, you know, I still kind of consider this to be a bit of a warm-up sketch, or we're still kind of learning some of the basics here, right? So, in fact, maybe I'll just, I was going to make sure there's not too much I need to exaggerate here, really. But, so the places where we're going to expect, maybe I'll kind of go back to my own clothes, where we're going to expect the most amount of like pinching and tension are going to be obviously underneath your armpits, and then in your crotch area and around your waist, right? So, you know, if I'm bending, we're going to have some folds here, but, you know, obviously there's this fabric, just like our eyelids. It's got to go somewhere when our arms are bent, right? And as soon as we start kind of twisting, fabric's going to start bunching up, right? And when in our crotch, when we move one leg in front, we have this kind of pulling and twisting of fabric. So I think what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to omit like her arms and her face and hair, and just kind of go really focus on this fabric. So I'm just going to get darker here so you can see. Okay, so I'm going to go back to this ribbon here. Okay. You can see this, what is it? Think of a belt. I guess it's a belt, right? It's doing the job of a belt. Right, so that's causing this fabric to fold here. Okay. And then over here, same, we got a little bit of tension from up top. And I would expect there'd probably be a little bit coming that way as well. Even though I can't see because her arm's covering it, I'm just gonna add a little bit of, this would be kind of the side of her hips there. Okay. And then I'm gonna come all the way back down to the bottom of her leg here and try to capture some of this. Big long line coming all the way up and sweeping across her body. I can't quite see what's going on here. If you make enough kind of folds and stuff in the fabric, you can kind of cheat a little bit with no one knows exactly what's going on here. So super high heels. Okay, so this is kind of the basic kind of structure here with these kind of big folds. I'm just going to add a little bit of shading to it. It looks like the light source is from this side, so I'm just going to kind of quickly, I can kind of darken this side pretty quickly. And I'm going to come back to here because we could do a little fun stuff with this piece of fabric overhanging there. And, you know, I'm just noticing that there's a lot of light coming from different directions in the photograph, but I'm still just gonna go with the way that I'm shading it personally, just so I can kind of focus on the lesson that I want to get across here. So I'm quickly going over and just adding kind of the general shadow here, and then I'm going to get a little more specific in a moment. So depending on how realistic you want to make your drawing, or you're welcome to. Anyway, okay, so I'm actually, let's go for slightly different color. I wonder what would happen if I took some pink and went into. So what I want to do is I want to try to add a little bit of these shadows under here. And what I'm going to do is I want to try to convey the shape. I wonder Let's see. See, so maybe I'll just kind of exaggerate this a little bit. So what I'm trying to do here is convey the look of, let's say, I'll draw this bigger. Without all these, is this shadow kind of curving. So let's see, this is, right, so the shadow kind of curving around the fabric. Right, so it kind of helps kind of show the curve of the fabric. Right, and then if I was to darken, right, so we have, I could soften that. That makes sense. Right, so same sort of thing. If I really wanted to get some of these things, maybe I'll give it a little bit darker. Let's see, I'm going to back out again. Okay. And then as I go up here, so not every place has like a big, deep kind of fold, right? So maybe the fabric is just kind of gently draping over something. We would still see a little bit of shadow kind of, or darkness kind of forming, kind of where I'm up to here, which again is a little bit different than the photograph. But you can also see just using another color like this pink is on the surface certainly no darker than the blue, but by adding it over top of this blue, it suddenly becomes way darker, right? So I think just to kind of keep consistency, I am going to make this darker over here. And what I would, you can probably think there might be. Okay. There's another one. I can see my hand rubbing off onto the surface here. Okay. So maybe I'm going to leave this up for just a second while I... Okay, I'm just going to quickly... Okay, I can't find that, so we'll go back to, I think it's, oh, I know where I've put it. Okay, so I think we're pretty warmed up. what I'm going to do is we're going to do some drawings of these t-shirts, I think is what we're going to do next here. Okay, so let's go to a new page, and we're going to just kind of look at these folds and t-shirts and stuff, and maybe to do that, let's divide the page into 4. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw 4 of the t-shirts up here, and you're welcome to draw whichever ones you like. Let's say I'm going to, let's start with the one in the top left. So to start out with, I'm just going to draw this kind of pillow shape here. All right, so here's the shoulders, here's the belly button in here. So not too much of a bend happening. All right, here's the neck. We'd have a head up here. Right, here's these arms coming off the side. So here's the body. Maybe I made it a little bit wide, so I'm just going to taper it down a bit. Okay, and in fact, let's make a little timer here. Let's say we're going to finish this drawing in 4 minutes for sure, no problem. Okay, so once we've got kind of the basics in here, let's just kind of look at this image. Here's the collar and our shoulders, and the fabric kind of pulling a little bit underneath these armpits. All right. So already we have these arms are a little bit in behind the chest, right? So the chest is kind of poofing outwards a bit. And then the fabric is just sort of building up towards the bottom, right? So kind of, you know, it's a long t-shirt, it's just sort of, you know, folding up down here, right? If we want, we can add a little bit of shading to it. Okay. So let's try another one here. Let's draw the top right one, right? So this one, we think of, so this here is the shoulders. Okay. And then the belly button would be kind of somewhere, if we think about center, this would be a shoulder, and this would be another shoulder. Head here. So you see, I was just sort of drawing so this body is turned a little bit, right? Okay. So let's set another, we'll do this one in 4 minutes as well. Just gonna start with this collar. Again, you notice I don't always obey where my original lines were when I put them down. Right, there is sort of, you know, guide posts, you know, that as I'm thinking things through, but This is where I start getting maybe more specific, is with this next round of drawing. All right, so let's see these. Again, folds from around the armpit. What I would say is, if you're drawing fabric, at least when your initial sketch, I would encourage you to exaggerate things a little bit. I know there's some people saying like, oh, like these, you know, these lines are maybe like, even when on my previous drawing, I started adding things that weren't really there in the photograph. Both to kind of, because it's always easier to dial things back than it is to amp things up, especially later on. So just sort of capturing, because by exaggerating, you kind of have to see some of that movement in order to create those folds, right? I think I mentioned Todd McFarlane last class. Very, you know, maybe I'll show an image of Spawn here afterwards. Ridiculously exaggerated figures. Okay, so I'm going to go to the bottom left. So same sort of thing here. The shape that I'm drawing here. So the belly button is going to be somewhere around here. So again, I know you can't see this line, so I have to, this partly comes out of just knowledge of anatomy, but because you know, I can get, even here you can see I got a little bit confused with this shoulder, and I started kind of drawing that line, and I'm like, okay, but that's not the actual kind of top of that pillow, if you want to use that analogy. Okay, so here we can see these arms are pulled back, and that's creating tension underneath the armpits. All right, it's causing this fabric to twist. All right, so we'll go back. So you could make the person's body whatever shape you want here, right? Like tapering this in is making him look a little bit thinner. All right, like this guy now looks super thin. But I could easily make him much bigger. Okay. And then I'm going to do the second from the right. This guy is kind of sitting down a little bit. So this guy, his neck here. Again, all these folds. Okay. Sharpen. So one thing you could do is, let's say this curves up, instead of just being the full color, maybe part of it disappears into that shape, right? Right, so all this tension is coming onto this seam of this shoulder here. And the same thing, we got fabric pulling a bit on this arm. Right, and then it kind of builds up in here, and then all this fabric down here doesn't know where to go or what to do. Okay. I don't think we'll have time to kind of tackle some of these things, but again, here, you know, if you really want to kind of get into a bunch of different things, you could see, you know, from this crotch, all of this tension, the fabric pulling on that seam, right? That's why your pants split right there and not right here or on the knee or wherever. They're splitting right in the crotch because that's where fabric is really pulling from. All right, so all these pulls and same thing with the sleeves, right underneath the armpit, all this tension right here. So those would be the places where you're really always getting over the top of the shoulders where the fabric is draping down, right, and the weight is pulling at it. So here would be, if we wanted to do a little bit longer studies of, let me see, I'll pull, where's my, just gonna, so if we wanted to do like a charcoal study of some folds, this is what we would do, right? Is we would sit down, we would try to do these kind of drawings. Now, my one little thing is that these jeans start to look a little bit, excuse me, these jeans start to look a little bit plasticky or metallic, or kind of, to me, look like less like jeans and more like pleather or something, right? In the way that these shiny folds. So what I would do is just dull them down a little bit, but in terms of a fabric study, that works fine. You can see often the pants kind of bunch up by the feet. Okay. So I think let's find, again, if you want, you could just take a screenshot of these and you could draw them. But what I do want to do is find another image for us to draw for kind of maybe one or two more here. Let's see. Maybe let's draw this guy. Is there enough? Yeah, let's do that, because we got some zippers and stuff in there. We haven't talked about that. So how would we make a drawing of this fellow? And here's the photographer, Dami Adebayo, I would say. Dami Adebayo, right? He's a photographer. If you wanted to check out his other photographs on the site or his own personal work. Okay, so let's do a drawing of this guy here. Maybe we'll take a little bit of time on this. We'll see how many we can get done. Let's see. Let's try to do our initial sketch in 4 minutes. Okay, so we're just going to get the basic outlines here to start. So I'm going to look for his shoulders again, somewhere in here. All right. And they're going to come up a bit. Right, his neck is in here. And I know actually I'll draw a little. I was gonna say I know I draw lightly, but and then I'm like, you know what? I know there's people who say I'm always drawing too light, so I'm just going to make this darker for everybody to see what I'm doing here. I did just run out of room here, so I did what I often tell people not to do, which is to ignore the edge. So actually we would go off the page a little bit there. And maybe I'll do some glasses. So here's his eyes here. All right, just kind of throw this in. Okay. Okay, neck. And then there's the shirt collar gonna be in here somewhere. And then this jacket is gonna come down here. It's big. Again, you could see I'm moving quickly. I'm not even, in fact, I know I don't have all this exactly in the right place. I might have to do a little bit of moving. But I want to get this in place so that I can then make my adjustments going forward. Do I want to draw this hand? Maybe. We'll see. Okay. So here would be my initial kind of sketch here. Time to take a little bit of tea. Now, if I was doing this properly, what I probably would have done is really try to, oops, he's looking this way. Gosh, this is so confusing trying to do, because everything's backwards here, so it's like the opposite of a mirror. I'm leaning this way, and then he's looking that way. All right, and he's got this arm, so he's kind of leaning in, and in my drawing, I didn't really get that lean in pretty well. I don't know if I'm gonna, at this point, try to rectify that, because I should have done that earlier on. I should have really noticed that. And if I was looking, I probably would have done a bit more of an arc on here. But I'm just gonna keep on moving forward, because today's about the fabric and clothes and not about the body so much, even though technically they're kind of intertwined. Okay. So that's my 4 minutes of my initial structure drawing. And how long should we? Let's say, see how far we can get in 10 minutes from here. Okay, so I'm moving on to my blue here, just so I can start kind of doing a little bit more problem solving. And I'm just gonna draw right through this hand for right now. Okay, so I'm pretty happy, I guess, with the where I laid out some of these things. Maybe this needs to be a little bit bigger, maybe, or does this need to be smaller? This needs to be smaller, I think. Okay, and then, yeah, I could move his whole head down, because you could see his chin is actually right around here, so. This is going to drive everybody nuts because it's going to get confusing, isn't it? Okay. So here's the shirt collar in here. And his tie. Looks like some kind of robot. What is that from? It looks like the Invisible Man. That's what that makes me think of. The where he's got the bandages wrapped and then the glasses over top. Okay. So, okay, right here is an interesting question. So you see there's this fold in the jacket that is slightly awkward. Like, do I want to capture that or not? Do I want to smooth it out and make it look kind of clean like this side? Or do I want to capture that? I don't know. I mean, this all goes into like questions that all artists face as they're drawing is like, at what point do I make some changes? Is it okay to make changes? I hear a lot of artists think about these things like almost in moral terms, like, ooh, am I being dishonest if I move this backwards or forwards, or eliminate this, or add this, or change this direction of the shadows? Personally, I would say go right ahead. I mean, it depends on what you're drawing, but you know, if you were, you know, paid to document something specific and you started modifying it, well then, yeah, maybe there's some kind of moral problem there where you're, you know, like if, as so-called explorers used to do, and they used to go to all these different countries around the world, and they would draw pictures of the elephants and bears, and then bring them back to the Queen of Portugal or whatever, and they looked pretty weird. Like, okay, so here I'm just looking. What I want to do, maybe, well, I'm just take a break is from chatting about random things and get back to the matter at hand. So we've got, just gonna take a moment to go into some of these folds here on the sleeve, right? So here's this kind of dark area, and we got this fold, right, which creates this kind of bulge here on the fabric. And we could spend you know, 3 or 4 hours really drawing this drawing. So I don't want to do that. I just want to be able to capture the feeling of this fabric folding here and all of these folds. Right, and we can cheat a lot with using some shadows and stuff. Okay, so just kind of being consistent, I notice, okay, if this is this little bit of white space here, right, well, that's where this watch is right here. All right, so I'm going to draw that little watch in, and then that means this hand might have to back off a little bit. This line here that I'm drawing is the knuckles, right? And then these fingers would be somewhere. This. Is everything in the right place? Of course not. I think this should be higher, shouldn't it? It should be. And then it kind of comes through on this side, doesn't it? It just pops out down here. So what I want you to see as I'm doing this is there's movement happening, right? You see I moved the head. I moved this part of the jacket. It's important to be flexible, right? Because I don't want to spend more than like 30 seconds drawing this head because I had to move the head, right? And if I had spent more time on there, I would have been like really, you know, it would have been this like Sophie's choice, kind of like, what do I do here? Do I redraw the head? Do I keep going? Do I move the body up because I did such a great job on spent 30 minutes on that head? All right. So I don't even want to have that discussion with myself. I want to be able to move straight forward. So what I'm doing here, I'm just looking at all these folds in the jacket and trying to get the sleeve done here. I got a couple of minutes left on my original timer. Okay. I'm feeling like I got a lot of the basics in place. Maybe just for some people, I'm just going to quickly draw in this nose, or the face just a little bit. Okay, and then I'll continue with the rest of the body here in a moment. Okay, so I've got, what was that? That was 10 minutes I put on the clock for this. I got a minute left. So far I'm like 15 minutes into this drawing. If I wasn't explaining myself throughout the whole thing, I should have been done this in about the first 5 minutes, but I'm also want to slow down so that you can see the whole process. So, okay, a few things here. I was just talking about like leather, right? And leather is a tricky thing because it's both shiny and depending on how oiled it up, I guess it is, it can be kind of matte or it can be really reflective, right? This one's not too reflective, but we're still going to see some pretty sharp contrasts and shadows that we wouldn't see in a pair of jeans or a sweater or anything, right? So let's start, if I'm kind of confident with some of these lines, I'm going to kind of go back around, and like leather is pretty, okay, so let's add 10 more minutes to this clock here. Leather's, you know, kind of a stiff fabric, so this kind of lines that I'm drawing right now tends to kind of work pretty well. I've added a little bit of a zigzag in here. I'm gonna just cheat this a little bit, this area here, and just add a little bit of a bump. Okay. Comes to its tie. I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a waves just to kind of break up that kind of black shape that was just kind of a blob in there. And this collar. So this is going to be, I'm going to try to make a little bit of a distinction between this shirt and these clothes shortly. And I'm not going to use color either to cheat myself out of it. Okay, so I may, well, actually I probably, these folds, this arm is going back, so this line probably should have crossed over, but whatever. I'm not going to worry about getting these fingers so much, but just draw this in quickly. So go back up here into his face and darken that. You can see how I kind of like jumping around. I want everything to kind of be developing simultaneously, right? So that we have, so that if I have to walk away right now, I've got something I can feel pretty happy with, and that it might inspire me to want to devote more time to finishing, rather than something that's, you know, only partly finished. And then I might be like, I'm not happy with it. I'm just going to give up on it. Okay. So you see these kind of just kind of like wavy lines, like pretty loose, right? But it just helps to kind of convey the movement of this fabric, right? Can't see the other hand down there, but, and I think I'm going to do the same sort of thing here. Well, this is going to get darker. Just going to quickly darken a bunch of this here because we don't see it. So right now I'm just adding some darkness already, just to kind of start bringing this thing into some kind of shape, right? And to unify it a little bit. As I'm drawing this, I'd say most of my attention is on the drawing itself. At this point, I'm looking less and less at the original here. Kind of going back and forth as to like, okay, I need detail in here. What do I want to put in here? There's not a lot of it, so I might kind of just invent a little bit of stuff here. Just to give it a little more shape, kind of like that big flat kind of thing going on here. Okay, so maybe I'm just going to use a slightly different blue here so that it'll stand out a little more. Okay, here's my 3.5 minutes. So I don't think anyone sent, oh, Heidi did send a really cool drawing and I'd like to take a look at. So there's one thing we'll quickly show. So, you know, at this point, when we start getting into the real details and shading, this is where your shorthand kind of comes in, right? So when your drawing is, you know, this, in a way, I kind of feel I'm satisfied with it enough that, you know, there's 3 minutes left. If I want to close it up and go, I'm like, okay, I feel like I got things on there enough. I see a guy walking around with shades and his, you know, a jacket and just a tie. Like, that information is conveyed. So what else do I want to get across to people? Well, maybe I want them to know what kind of fabric it is. I want to add maybe a little more depth with my shadow. I want to kind of maybe get these folds in a little bit more clearly and play around with. So then it's like, how am I going to describe? So I'm going to show you my shorthand for things. One of the things I love doing most is adding like these little stitching, because that kind of helps show how it's put together. Often when I do this, I feel like it takes a bit of makes it look a little like denim. So I want to be kind of careful. How many of these I put on here. All right, we got, this is a seam. Right across here. Okay, and then we have these, the what you call the zipper, right? So how you do that is kind of up to you. And it might change also depending on the scale of things. Like maybe when you can't see a lot of something, you're not going to go into too much detail. Otherwise you're like, it's just gonna get lost, right? So what I'm doing here is sort of making like a ladder, right? Like I'm kind of just, if this is the side, like that's my zipper, right? If I wanted to get closer in, obviously, you know, like I might draw like little teeth on it, right? It's totally up to you. Just depends on how much time you have and how close of details you got going. Okay, so I'm just going to now go a little darker into some of these areas. And as I do this, I really also want to try to modify the direction of these marks. Take a piece of paper. Here's some, and just just to cover things up a little bit while I'm coloring this in. Okay, that's another 10 minutes is expired, so I'm just starting to kind of wrap things up here. And partly as I'm doing this, I'm getting a little bit sloppy, which is something to think about. Often this is what happens is, you know, I'm obviously guilty of it because I'm doing it right now. And sometimes, you know, when we get close to the end of a drawing, we kind of start speeding. You know, it's like they say, the most accidents happen within a few kilometers or miles of your house, because people, they're like, I've driven this 1,000 times or 100,000 times, and I can kind of do this brainlessly. I can just sort of, oh, okay, what am I gonna make for dinner tonight? Or I gotta call the plumber, and you start thinking of all these things, and then something happens and you hit something because you're not paying attention, right? So that happens in drawing too, where you're like, okay, everything's sorted out, I don't have to really do much thinking at this point. So, and then boom, whoa, what am I? So all this kind of scribbling, even that I'm doing right now, is, you know, I'm modeling very bad habits. And it's, in a way, kind of taking away from the drawing, right? It's kind of making it look a little bit sloppy. So don't do what I'm doing. You want to kind of be a little more thoughtful about things. Okay. But I have, things are going to start camera batteries and everything are going to start going pretty shortly here, so I do have to push forward here as quickly as possible. So just little things here that I'm adding to kind of give these are the shadows of this jacket onto the fabric below. Just drew on myself here. Okay. At this point, a few things that I might consider doing are, maybe I might come in here and with this shirt, I'm just giving it a little bit of some stippling maybe, because I want to give some distinction of the difference between the shirt and this leather sweater, or leather jacket, leather sweater. Is there such a thing as a leather sweater? I'd be so interested to know. So just putting a little bit of those dots there, kind of, if this was a pen, you'd see it a little bit more. Just to kind of show this is slightly different fabric. Even if if it's not the exact right thing, does it matter? This is what the drawing takes on a life of its own, and it's important to honor the drawing itself. I think I'm going to leave it here for right now. And while that's happening, Actually, maybe I'll leave my drawing up here in case anyone's following along with that. And while that's happening, I'm just gonna load up, make sure no one else has been sending me messages. I don't think, oh, look at all these. Are these new? I thought I've looked at some. Oh, what's going on here? Okay, I don't think there's any new Facebook messages. Where's my, or Instagram messages? No. So we'll look at this drawing. Come on. I just thought this was great. Where is it? So this is a drawing that Heidi sent in following last class, and I just thought it was worth kind of sharing with you guys because what I liked about this is she took all the drawings that we were doing last week and combined them all onto one page. And I said to her, it reminds me of something we would see on like Harry Potter's desk. All this random stuff now seems very mysterious. You're like, oh, this feather, you know, this magical eagle's feather, and this block of wood, you know, from the magical tree in the forest, and this, you know, marble glass kind of ball, and here's the, you know, so all the, you know, maybe this is some important handkerchief and an empty glass, right? Or that might be that we're gonna grind it all up into and drink the potion from. But it is kind of neat seeing all these random things to get together. And you know, as I say that, one of the things that's unique about people is our desire is constantly to come up with stories, right? We're always looking at things and trying to piece them together and figure out the meaning and the message. Not that there has to be one. It's just important for you to know that people are going to kind of instinctively go for that and always try to make sense of things. Anyway, I just thought she did a great job here. I like the adding little bits of color, because this was a kind of a dark blue ball in the wood, and even this little bit of brown on the edge of the feather. So, if you have a drawing that you've done today that you'd like to share, I would love to see it. You could send it, probably we won't have time to look at it today, but next on Thursday I'll look at any artwork anybody sends me in to review. What I would do over the course of this next little bit is, you know, go online or draw some pictures of your friends or family, or do a little bit of a fashion modeling shoot for yourself if you want. You know, try on some of your clothes. If you have a friend take pictures, or take some pictures, some selfies in the mirror, and then just try drawing, like contort yourself a little bit, right? Like try getting the fabric to kind of billow out. One thing, and I forgot to mention this, is and can't really do it on, let's see. You know what? Actually, just before I transition out of here, one thing I was going to mention and I forgot to is you can kind of have a little bit of fun. Let's say I'm going to use this pink, is trying to add like stripes or patterns on things. So let's just say with this outfit here. So let's say this is a striped shirt. So I'm just going to draw some stripes across here. And so I'm just making this stuff up out of my mind, right? Some people are like, yeah, it looks like it. But this, to kind of show the shape of this shirt. Right, so up here it's going to be kind of a little bit more flattened as it comes around. You can see I don't even really need, I can use the pattern to mimic like folds, right? So I think I'll do this to all of these here, right? So, because this is a lot of fun. It can be very hard to draw this initially, but you can use all of this, right? Because then once it starts kind of getting caught up into here, we've got all of these lines kind of jumbling, and right, you could imagine if you're trying to draw like my shirt that I'm wearing right now, and to get those kind of folds in there could just drive you absolutely nuts. All right, so that would be how you could tackle this. So you see in here, they kind of just, it breaks up a little bit. If I go back into here, and I'm going kind of fast, but you could do a pretty cool job. See how anytime I get to a fold, I kind of stop and break, and just sort of, depending on how big the fold is, I kind of move the line a bit and kind of break it up, and then I'm going to join them back up again here. Right, and then this side here is closer to me, so I expect it to be kind of, the lines could be a little bit wider, maybe a little bit further apart. Okay, so here, let's kind of think about this coming across. I would also try to do it in a line, rather than trying to do here and move here, because then you might find in between, if you're trying to bridge that gap, that things can be really tricky. So I also kind of like starting right around the center of the chest. Why do I like doing that? I think because I find it easier to kind of start around here as opposed to starting right up at, because I guess maybe it's still, I know that line's going to be nice and straight. Oh, just lost a camera battery here. This is going to be a common theme shortly here, so you don't really want to drop a camera battery like that. Seems to have survived well enough. We'll see if it explodes. Okay. I also, as I'm doing this, I like to generally keep one, like the lines going across, rather than doing a whole bunch down and a whole bunch down, right? So that I can kind of follow that line as it goes around. And I'm kind of modifying it with arcs going up and around, or S kind of shapes. Maybe should I zoom in here? start on the sleeve down here. So I find this a lot of fun and kind of almost meditative as well, right? Because it's like just drawing lines across a page. I could imagine, you know, if the first time you're doing this could feel a little bit stressful because you're trying to do, I mean, maybe it's because I've been doing this for decades that when I do this, I can shut my brain off a little bit. You know, I could probably, you know, like I'm sitting here talking with you guys while I'm doing this kind of stuff, which might not be as easy for everybody to do while they're trying to concentrate. But I just find like this, drawing these lines going across fabric. I did a whole project of, and I'm still doing it now that I did a project on Tom Thompson years ago, this Canadian artist, and he was wearing a kind of striped or checkered shirt like this. I did hundreds of hours of drawings of shirts like this. Maybe the whole reason I did that project was so that I could just do this kind of thing over and over again. But you see how these, just doing, oops, I'll move this over here, add, like, just these little lines here, it adds so much more to the shirt, right? Now it really feels like the fabric is bending and twisting and pulling, right? Because our eyes now see this stripe as being continuous, but when it gets broken up down here, we're like, oh wow, look at all these folds folding around. Okay. Back that out a bit for people who are... Okay, I could go on, as I'm sure some of you know. I had somebody write on a YouTube, like, could you make some shorter videos? I'd probably watch more of them. So maybe I'll do that in the future. Maybe I'll even just edit some of these down to like a 5-minute video where I just focus on these drawing the shirts and stuff. But anyway, so for Thursday, what we're going to talk about is drawing, since I didn't get any feedback from anybody saying they want to do anything different, except for Peter. And I wonder if there's a way I could fit a little bit of that in for you, Peter, since you were the only one who did reply. Palash did say they just want to start painting, which is... right after this, I'm going to record a video talking about the different kinds of paint that I suggest you buy, right? And for our painting class starting in a couple of weeks, this time 2 weeks from now. So if you want to take your drawing and develop it into a painting ability, which would be awesome, then I'm going to show you how to do all that. That's why these drawing classes are coming to an end in a few weeks, is because we're moving into a painting course. So, which just like this is free. But if you want to support that course or this course, you're certainly welcome to make a donation. PayPal link is below, and I'm working on the Patreon, so eventually that link will be down here and on all the other previous videos as well. With some perks for people who've been donating. Anyway, thank you very much for tuning in, watching, and following along for another one of these episodes. Please like and subscribe to the channel at the very least. That would be helpful. Share it with your friends and family, and we'll see you on the next episode. Try doing a little bit of drawing in the meantime. You've probably noticed some of the people who've sent in some of those really amazing drawings. You're like, why are they doing so well? Like, what are they doing right? Really, it's just practice, right? It's like, hey, I have a personal trainer, and I only work out when I'm Zooming with them as well, right? If I was doing a little bit more exercise or doing any exercise on my own outside of that, well, I'd be in much better shape than I am in now, right? So as long as I understand that the reason why I'm not accelerating and getting the results I really want is because I'm not really doing a lot of extra work on my own. So that's how I'm making that comparison. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and we'll see you in a couple days. And yeah, happy drawing, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.